Okay, so this is just a quick tip. So you should always tie your horse short to the trailer, to the tie-up, wherever you are. Okay, horses will pull. See, this guy likes to pull, so I have to double knot it because he used to be allowed to pull on it. And they'll get themselves in trouble. So if it gets longer, he might play with the door, he might bust my door, he might knock over my grooming box. They get into all sorts of stuff. And all you're doing is teaching them bad habits. So when you tie them up, if they pull, make sure their halter's double knotted, and make sure your Aussie ring, it's wrapped around it so they can't pull and get away. Now you might think, well, I want him to put his head down, I want him to graze. Well, if they're tied up and you have long rope, what can happen is they get the rope wrapped around their legs and they flip themselves over because they're goofy, or they can break a leg, get a rope burn, etc. So you might think it's a nice thing to do, but it's not, because you'll actually be the one who's hurting your horse. So it's different when you ground tie them because the rope's completely on the ground and they're less likely to wrap their legs up in it, but they still can. So you always have to have protection on their legs. But if it's tied up to the trailer or somewhere high and it's long, that's when they're going to get their legs in it. And I did have a client who did that. I told her not to, and she still did. I think she tied her horse to a tree and she tied it really loose. And he wrapped himself all up in it, freaked out, reared up, flipped over. Yep, almost killed himself. And then I had to get him undone because, of course, then he was tangled up and freaked out. And so you got to be really careful when you tie them up. There's a reason they're always short at the trail stables and, you know, everywhere else. The people who know what they're doing, the trainers, will have their horses tied up short so they can't get into trouble. The people who have it tied really long haven't had an accident yet. And someday it'll happen, and then you'll never forgive yourself when you see what happens when they're tied long. So just do me a favor, keep your horses tied short. If they pull, come up with some other ideas so they can't get themselves into trouble, and use different equipment so they can't pull it through. But if you teach them to tie short, they'll be safe, and it's not like you're never going to untie them. So don't feel bad for them. Feel bad if you give them a bad habit, and feel bad if you get them tangled up because of something you did.